Hi everybody, welcome to J-Cube Designs. My name is Jeannie. A lot of people ask me how I came up with that name. J-Cube Designs is named after myself, my husband John, and my son JC, so we're the three J's. I have been designing SVGs for years now. I work with both the Silhouette and the Cricut Maker. And I wanted to put together a series of videos that will teach you how to create cut files and how to use the Silhouette software for designing and making mini albums. We are going to use the Silhouette software, but I'm going to show you, without spending any money, your options on how to convert them to SVGs, and that will allow you to open it on a Cricut Maker, on Puzzle machines, a scan and cut if you convert the SVG to the scan and cut format. So everybody can use this. You don't have to own a Silhouette Cameo to do everything I'm doing. If you're thinking to yourself, but I don't really do mini albums, that's okay. You can play along, do what we're doing. You might pick up one or two tips about the software itself and some of the tools in the software. So I'm hoping lots of people can get use out of this. So let's get started. Some of the topics that I know we're going to cover is my starting off point in a series of videos is we're going to take a cutting guide for a project that is a pretty basic little folio. Then I'm going to teach you how to add score lines, how to add mitered corners, any tapers you might need. We're then going to take the next step and we're going to add windows to pockets and such. We're going to add decorative edges, and we're even going to create shapes within the elements on the folio. I also use my software quite often to plan out all my pattern paper placement and my photo placement and size, and I'm going to take you step by step through that. And I will then talk about how to take those pattern paper and photos and how to create print and cuts. Now, print and cuts are kind of different for the various machines, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. If this all sounds like just too much, what I do specialize in is specific SVG creation for people. So if you have a project that you want to have personalized with a name embedded in it, or you have tutorials for mini albums and you just don't want to be bothered, you certainly can hire me to do it. My email is designsjcubed@gmail.com. So here's all the things you're going to need to play along through the series of videos. First, you're going to need the Silhouette software. That can be downloaded at www.silhouetteamerica.com/software. Let's go take a look at that real quick. Okay, here you are at the Silhouette America page, and they have the software for both Mac and for Windows. They have a current version and then they have a beta. You do not want to download the beta. You'll want to download either your Mac or your Windows, and in Windows they have both the 64-bit and 32-bit. And it's going to depend if you're running Windows 7s or higher, you want the 64, or Windows 32-bit if you're running lower. I'm a Mac girl, so I use the 64-bit Mac. So know which level of software you need for Windows or Mac, and you just click on that link, it'll download, and then you install it. Okay? The second thing you're going to need is the Silhouette software will save in its own proprietary format, which is Studio. To open it, if you're running a Cameo, that's all you need. You're done. You're good to go. You can save all your files as a studio. However, if you're going to use any other cutting machine, you're going to need to save your file in an SVG format. There's two ways you can do that. You can buy the business edition of Silhouette software, and that allows you to save from Silhouette directly as an SVG. And we'll talk about that in 1 second. Or there is also an online studio converter that will take a studio file and convert it to an SVG. And it's a company out of the UK. Here is their link. Let's go take a look at that. And here it is. It's an SVG convert. And when we get all done creating my files, we'll convert it. But it's very simple. You simply come in here. You choose a file. Let me go to here. We'll go to here. We'll grab this file. We're going to choose that file. You click Convert Studio to SVG. And then I get a download link, and I just download that to my computer. And you'll notice in the download, I now have holiday round tags. Instead of a studio file, it's now been converted into an SVG. So that allows you to convert online. Let's talk briefly about studio. If you save in Business Edition under Silhouette software, if you buy the Business Edition, save it as an SVG, and then go to open it in Design Space, it will not transfer in at the same size. The two softwares set different DPI parameters. Not a big deal, but just be aware you'll have to resize things in Design Space. To be honest, when I'm designing commercially, I use Adobe Illustrator. There is also another software out there called Scal. Sure cuts a lot. And if I'm designing something in Silhouette, I quite often will take it through Scal to convert it to an SVG, because then I don't have resizing problems in Design Space. But you certainly, without spending any money, can design in Silhouette software. Once you have your file, your cut file, you can convert it with the free SVG converter. Now, there's one other element that we're going to need to get started, and we need a project. We need to know what it is that we're creating. So, Tamara Merrill from Country Craft Creations allowed me to put this together with her Wizard of Oz folio. There's a walkthrough on YouTube, and put that up there. That long, horrible string there is the actual link to the walkthrough video. You also can just Google, I think it's Magic of Oz. It's not really Wizard of Oz, it's the Magic of Oz folio. Or if you go to her actual, if you go to Country Craft Creations YouTube page and just do a search for Magic of Oz, it'll pop up. There's also the tutorial, because once you cut all your pieces, you just might want to put the folio together. And she walks you through it step by step, which is great. She's also the owner of a shop. They have great craft stock. She keeps a lot of things in her shop that you can get. She loves some authentique. She loves some graphic 45, but she has lots of basic supplies. Shipping is quick. Customer service is great. I don't get a kickback, but I wanted to give that a shout out because she's been so nice to let me use her folio in these series of videos. Now, to get started, we need a cutting guide. Now, quite often, if you are looking on YouTube, they will provide a written cutting guide, but they vary in quality, what information they provide. Tamara doesn't actually have one for her Wizard of Oz folio, but she walks you through the sizes in the beginning of the video as she cuts and folds her pieces. So I created a cutting guide, and I wanted to go through it because I want you to know what kind of information you're going to need before we start to create the files. I want each different piece to have an identifying label so that I can label all of my pieces as I cut them and get ready for assembly. So I use lettering, and I just run the letters down in a column. And then what kind of material do I want to cut? Chipboard. I'm using chipboard as the base. I use Tyvek quite often I have a huge giant roll in several colors, and I use that quite often to cover my albums. Or you can use cardstock, and then of course cardstock for all the pages. We also, as I create windows and such, we would be cutting acetate. And then I need to know the number of each of these pieces that I need to cut, because some of the pieces we're going to need multiple pieces. The next thing you need to know is the size. We need to know the height and the width. That way we can create the objects and the shapes that we need to create all the pieces. This is the same size that you would cut if you were cutting these pieces by hand, but using your cutting machine to cut out all the elements for a mini album means they will fit together like butter. Everything's perfectly sized, everything will line up. I cut everything with my machine. You're also going to want to know where you're going to score. We will talk about scoring and whether you really want to score by hand or whether you want the machine to do the scoring. We'll talk about that as we get into it. But either way, you're going to want to know where your score lines hit, because we're also then going to create the pattern paper mats, and you really want to be able to delineate as you're designing what are flaps and what's going to show. So for each of the pieces in the Magic of Oz folio, I have my little notes on how I'm going to score. I also put some notes on here so that if I need to know what else I want to do, I can create it. For example, I want to put on this one, for example, I want to add a circle cut. What I did was I created, and you'll see it, on my pocket, I created some cutouts on my pockets, and I'll teach you how to do that. So this is a really, really basic design, but this is really my roadmap for what we're going to do. And again, I will take you through a series of videos step by step. But to wrap up this introduction video, I just wanted to show you what it is we're going to be creating. So for this Magic of Oz folio, here's my cutting guide when it's all completed. All right. I have all my chipboard pieces. I have the pieces I need to cut out to wrap my cover. I then have the various flaps that show up. And I have my pockets. And you'll notice that they have mitered corners. I've cut some interesting shapes out of them. And on these pockets, I actually put some edging on them. So this is the actual file I'm going to teach you to create. You then can take this software, and this is where I really love it. Yes, this will cut out all of these pieces. I don't have to cut them out by hand, but what I really love is this file allows me to create a matting guide. Okay? What I do is I put my pattern paper in, and then it allows me, like let's look at the cover of the folio I made. Here it is laying flat. It allowed me to put my pattern papers in and decide exactly how I wanted to place them on my cover. Then, these are some inside flaps. I was able to drop in my photographs. Let's zoom in. I was able to drop in my photographs so that I could print and cut them exactly to size. And I could also drop in pattern paper. And what this lets me do is decide on my pattern papers before I cut anything. Because if I don't like this paper, I can go in, I can change it out, I can play with it, I can rotate it. I can also come in here and cut out exactly an embellishment out of the paper if I want. And then it'll also allow me to create this black cardstock backing and cut that out as well. So let me zoom out. Again, like here's a pocket that we're cutting a little shape out of. Here's the basic mat. And then I wanted to put a strip of paper across the top as a little tuck-in point so I could create the black cardstock mat. And then I cut this circle element actually out of my pattern paper and then created a backing for that as well. You also can then go in and create these little pieces here. This was a folding photo mat, front and back. Each holds 4 4x6s that goes into that pocket. Here's another photo mat that slides into this pocket, and it allows you to create all of that. So I also use it to create my photo mats. I wanted to make some items that dangled. This is another photo mat that goes in this pocket. And this was for my mother. We took her to Florida for her 80th birthday. So here's my sisters and I being goofy. And here's my mom's birthday party at the place we rented in our breakfast room. And since it's her 80th, I wanted to make an 80 that dangled off. And I wanted to cut out some elements. And then I hung all of these like charms from this photo mat that went inside of this pocket. So you can see that I can play with all of my elements, all of my pattern paper, move my pictures around, kind of get a visual feel, like here's a spread in the book, in the folio, here's another spread in the folio, and it allows me to design the entire thing before I go and cut anything. It's a lot more upfront work than doing everything by hand, in the sense that you do a lot of designing, a lot of time on the computer, and you feel like you don't have much to show for it. But I find once I cut it, I now have this entire guide of exactly where everything goes. I know everything fits. I cut everything. I ink my pattern papers, and then it's just boom, boom, boom. And you can put this folio together in, an hour, hour and a half. So this is exactly what I'm going to teach you to do. And I will see you in the next video.